Hey there, welcome back to Fuel Your Best. I'm your host, and I am so excited you're here today because we're diving into something I know a lot of you have questions about, and honestly, it's something I use strategically in my own training routine. Picture this. It's 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. You've got a big race coming up. Maybe it's a 10K, maybe it's a CrossFit competition, or maybe you're just meeting your friends for the most competitive pickup basketball game of the year. You're standing in your kitchen and you're staring at that pre-workout container or that coffee maker, and you're thinking, is this actually going to help me? Or is it just in my head? Well, my friend, today we're answering that question once and for all. We're talking about caffeine and athletic performance, how it works, what it does to your body, and whether that morning cup of joe or pre-workout shot is actually giving you a real edge, or if it's just expensive placebo magic. But before we jump in, I want to say a huge, heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you listening right now, whether you've been with us since episode 1 or this is your very first time tuning in. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing, for sharing this podcast with your friends, for leaving those amazing reviews that honestly make my day. You are the reason we get to do this every single week, and I don't take that lightly. This community we're building together, it's special. So thank you for being here and for being part of this journey toward better health, one episode at a time. All right, let's caffeinate our brains with some knowledge, shall we?
So here's the million-dollar question. Can caffeine actually improve your exercise and athletic performance? And the answer, backed by countless research studies, is yes. Yes, it can. But it's not just for marathoners or elite athletes. Caffeine's benefits extend to a surprisingly wide range of activities. Studies have shown that caffeine can enhance performance in prolonged endurance activities lasting over 90 minutes. Think long runs or bike rides. But it doesn't stop there. It also helps with moderate intensity exercise that you might sustain for 20 to 60 minutes, and even high-intensity interval training, lasting just 1 to 5 minutes. So whether you're a distance runner, a sprinter, or someone who loves HIIT classes, caffeine's got something for you. But wait, there's more. Research also shows that caffeine can increase movement velocity during resistance training, meaning you can move weights faster, and it improves your reaction time. Imagine how valuable that is if you're into martial arts, tennis, or any sport requiring quick, explosive movements. So how is this tiny molecule doing all of this? Let's break it down. The brain game. Caffeine and your central nervous system. First up, caffeine is a stimulant of your central nervous system. That's your brain and spinal cord. Now, inside your brain, you've got billions of neurons, or nerve cells, constantly communicating with each other. At the end of these neurons, there are receptors. Think of them like tiny locks waiting for the right key. One of these receptors is called the adenosine receptor. Throughout your day, as your brain burns through energy, a molecule called adenosine starts to build up and bind to these receptors. When adenosine locks into those receptors, it suppresses neural activity. Translation: you start feeling tired, less focused, less alert. It's your brain's way of saying, hey, maybe it's time to rest. Now, here's where caffeine comes in. When you drink coffee or take a pre-workout, caffeine molecules enter your bloodstream and make their way to your brain. Here's the cool part. Caffeine is shaped similarly enough to adenosine that it can fit into those adenosine receptors, but it doesn't activate them. It just blocks them. It's like putting a key in a lock that fits, but doesn't quite turn. So adenosine can't do its job, and instead of feeling tired, you feel more alert, more focused, and more awake. Boom! That's caffeine's superpower number 1. But it doesn't stop at just waking you up. Caffeine also reduces your perception of effort. When you're exercising at a certain intensity, caffeine makes it feel a little easier, like you're putting in less effort than you actually are. It also dulls your perception of pain slightly. We've all hit that wall during a workout where everything starts to hurt and feel uncomfortable, right? Caffeine helps you push through that a bit longer, which directly translates to better performance. the muscle connection, calcium and contraction. Now, let's talk about what's happening in your muscles. This is where it gets even more fascinating. Inside each muscle fiber, you have tiny contractile units called sarcomeres. These sarcomeres are made up of two main proteins, myosin and actin. When your brain sends a signal to your muscle to contract, calcium is released inside the muscle cell. That calcium binds to a complex that's blocking the interaction between myosin and actin, shifting it out of the way. Once that happens, myosin and actin can bind together and create a ratcheting effect, which shortens the muscle and creates contraction. Studies suggest that caffeine enhances the release of calcium within muscle cells, which means your muscles can contract more forcefully and more quickly. This could explain why research shows improved contraction velocity during resistance training when people supplement with caffeine. If you're lifting weights, doing plyometrics, or playing sports that require explosive movements, sprinting, jumping, throwing, this calcium boost is a game changer. And there's one more bonus. Caffeine also affects your heart muscle. It causes cardiac muscle to contract with more force, which means more blood and oxygen gets pumped to your working muscles. More oxygen delivery equals better endurance and performance. It all connects.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great, but is this actually proven or is it just theory? Let me give you some credibility here. Research in exercise physiology has consistently demonstrated these effects across multiple studies. The improvements we're talking about aren't just marginal, they're measurable and meaningful for both recreational athletes and competitive performers. One important thing researchers have found is that caffeine works through multiple pathways simultaneously. It's not just one mechanism, it's the combination of central nervous system stimulation, reduced perception of effort and pain, enhanced muscle calcium release, and improved cardiac output. All of these work together to give you that edge. And here's the kicker. These benefits apply to a huge variety of activities. Whether you're running a half marathon, crushing a strength training session, competing in a team sport, or even just trying to PR your next workout, caffeine can help.
Okay, so now you're probably wondering, how much caffeine should I actually take and when? Great question. Let's make this super practical. Tip number 1, find your optimal dose. It used to be thought that you needed a massive dose, like 5 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. For someone weighing around 184 pounds, that would be over 500 milligrams of caffeine. That's a lot, and honestly, you'd probably just be jittery and anxious. The good news? More recent research shows you need about half that amount. Roughly 2 to 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. For that same 184-pound person, that's around 167 to 250 milligrams of caffeine. Most pre-workout supplements contain about 200 milligrams, which is a solid starting point. If you're new to caffeine or you're sensitive to it, start lower, maybe 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram, and see how you feel. Everyone's different, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Here's the reality. Caffeine does not have a dose-response relationship. That means more isn't better. Once you hit that sweet spot, taking more caffeine won't improve performance, it'll just give you side effects like anxiety, jitters, or an upset stomach. So find your sweet spot and stick with it. Tip number 2, time it right. Timing matters. Caffeine is rapidly absorbed, with about 99% making it into your bloodstream within 45 minutes of consumption. So you want to consume your caffeine about 30 to 60 minutes before your workout or athletic event. Plan ahead. If your race starts at 8 a.m., have your coffee or pre-workout between 7 and 7:30 a.m. If you're hitting the gym after work, time your caffeine intake accordingly. Bonus tip. Be strategic, not dependent. Now, here's my personal approach, and I'm sharing this because I think it's important to talk about caffeine dependence. I don't take caffeine every single day. I know plenty of people who do, and that's totally fine if it works for you. But personally, I don't like feeling dependent on something or building up a tolerance. So what do? I selectively choose when to use caffeine. On regular training days, I usually skip it. But on competitive days, race days, big games, important events, I'll take about 200 milligrams of caffeine 30 to 60 minutes before. For me, that's maybe once or twice a week max. Why? Because if you use caffeine consistently and then stop cold turkey, you can experience withdrawal symptoms, headaches, irritability, fatigue. By being strategic, I reduce my risk of dependence while still getting those performance benefits when they matter most. Again, this is a personal choice. If daily caffeine works for you and you don't have issues, keep doing what works. But if you're like me and prefer to cycle it strategically, that's a great option too.
All right, my friends, here's your challenge for this week. And I want you to really think about this one. If you're someone who's never experimented with caffeine before a workout, I want you to try it once this week. Pick a training session or an activity where you really want to push yourself. Have a cup of coffee or a measured dose of caffeine about 45 minutes before, and pay attention to how you feel. Notice your energy, your focus, your perceived effort. Does it make a difference? Journal about it if you want. And if you're someone who already uses caffeine regularly, here's your challenge. Be more intentional about it. Are you using it every day out of habit or because you genuinely need it? Could you save it for days when it really counts? Experiment with being more strategic and see if that enhances your results even more. Small changes, big impact, that's what we're all about here. And hey, if you try this and notice a difference, I want to hear about it. Tag us on social media, send us a message, or leave a comment. I read every single one, and I love hearing your wins. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you feel empowered to make smarter, more strategic choices about caffeine and your performance. Before we go, I need to share an important disclaimer. The information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have underlying health conditions, are pregnant, or have concerns about caffeine consumption, please consult with a healthcare provider before making changes to your routine. Everyone's body is different, and what works for one person may not work for another. Thank you again for being here, for trusting me with your time, and for being part of this amazing community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend who could benefit. Or better yet, share it with that friend you're meeting for that competitive basketball game, and both of you can show up caffeinated and ready to dominate. Until next time, keep fueling your best self. I'll see you next week.